Mom wasn't too thrilled. Dad, he was real proud of that. But Mom said, "Oh, I'm going to break your legs so you can't go." Prior to, I just worked at the gas station, and I joined on my 19th birthday. A friend of mine and I decided to do it together. We both enlisted the same day. We were both in the Navy. His father was upset because he was Army and wanted his son to go Army. We went through boot camp and then we were separated. It's just something I've felt since I was real little that I had to serve, and so I did. Well, I wanted to travel, and I figured the Navy I'd be best to go into the Navy in order to see other countries. On my enlistment, it asks what you would like to do or be stationed, and I put Vietnam. I felt I had to do that. However they got me there was up to them, but I wanted Vietnam, and I got it. I went in. When I went aboard, I was supposed to be a jet mechanic, but they canceled that real quick and put me in auxiliary, into the main engine room. I was a machinist mate. Then I transferred out of there to the auxiliaries making water, and that's where I stayed for 3 years. There was a lot of marching. We did no marching once we got out, but there was a lot of marching in boot camp. Weapons, I got to pick up an empty 45 and go click and put it down, and that was the extent of that. A lot of our classes were on board a mock ship. Other than that, the classes that I had or other training, it was mostly just to get you to follow orders without question. So I believe he was a machinist mate. He was our instructor, and he was a real nice person. I liked him. He had a hot rod and a Harley Davidson, and he brought him into boot camp one day, a couple of different days, and that was pretty cool. And then I had my own hot rod. In my picture, I'm standing in front of it's a 1958 Chevrolet, and it was built for drag racing. It was the fastest car in high school, fastest car in the neighborhood. I was all about drag racing. Well, I was supposed to be jet engine mechanic, but they changed that for, I don't know the reason. Well, they said because I wear glasses, even though you can wear glasses as a jet mechanic. But I think they were short-handed in the machinist mate area and the auxiliaries, so they needed another person in there, so that's where I went, making water, and I enjoyed that. I started off in the mains, number 2 main machinery room, number 2 engine room. That was, wow, it was all about hot. It's all steam powered, so it was extremely hot down there. I remember washing my clothes and hanging my pants over a rail, and when I got done, I could just stand them up. It was so hot. It just like ironed them in place. They were big, giant boilers, and we also had 2 large generators, and we had to run those and take care of them, work on them. And I enjoyed anything that I got to use wrenches on. I really enjoyed that. In the mains, it was the heat, but when I transferred, it was just a joy. I enjoyed that so much. It wasn't as hot. The guys were really nice. It was quickly, I was in charge of 19 people, several months, and all of a sudden I was the one in charge. I liked that. I liked training, doing the PMS, preventative maintenance systems. I learned that real quick, and I could qualify everybody, teach them how to do each job, and then they could do it. I could just assign it to them. I just enjoyed that a lot, that position. I definitely got Vietnam, yes. Okay. I was stationed out of Alameda, California, and we went to Vietnam. You go twice, and you do 2 6-month tours, totaling 12, and then you're done. But when we were due to go over there, we had some time, and we were going to Hawaii and visit a couple of places. But there was another aircraft carrier dragging a screw. One of the engines broke, and we had to rush over into the Tonkin Bay area and relieve them. So we were there early, and then at the end of our tour, we were supposed to come home, but the war ended right then. So we stayed to go on guard duty. So instead of being there for 12 months, we were there a total of 19 months. And Admiral Nimitz said, everybody, because the time you ended up spending here, when you get out, you have no reserves. You're out of the service. So I didn't have to go to those classes afterwards. Yeah, we went in far enough into Tonkin Bay. One night we come out, and a destroyer come in behind us and got the back of their ship blown off. They had to fly 3 people on board to us because we had a full hospital. So that was the closest to anything getting blown up or whatever. It was war. That's all. You know, I've seen dead people. I've seen. Actually, the dead people I seen wasn't due to war. I was in Vietnam and waiting for a bus, the Philippines, at this corner. It was all jungle, and they just kind of clear out an area and make a crossroads there. And I was talking to a guy standing there in his T-shirt, and I caught my bus, went up, and on the way back, he was laying in the bush with 6 holes in him. I don't know what happened. I just kept on going. Yeah. But if I'd have been there too much longer, I guess I'd have been beside him. Well, with letters to my dad, mom and dad, and then I was able to call home once. That was good because I could hear their voices. There was a time in boot camp. I needed to talk to my dad. I really needed to hear his voice. And we weren't allowed to go to the phones and call. You had to have special permission and a walking paper. And I snuck out, went over to the area where the phone booths were, and I called my dad. And all of a sudden, I think it was a chief was coming towards me on a bicycle, and I said, I gotta go. And I hung up and took off running. I ran into the barracks. It wasn't my barracks, it was another one, and through it and into another, and then through it and into another, and just kept doing this. And the last one I ran into, there was a guy sitting by the exit door doing something, and he had his white hat on, and I grabbed it and went out the door, and then I seen the chief out coming right behind me, and I dropped it, went into the next barracks and kept going, and he stopped. He thought he had me, but it was that guy who I had dropped had all his information on it. There was one bar that in front of it had an alligator in a cage, and for $0.25 you could buy a duckling and feed the alligator. And then they'd sell meat on a stick, and the barbecue stunk so bad. You could be so far out to sea that you can't see land, but you could smell that stinking barbecue, and you knew you were headed for the Philippines. Oh, it's terrible. But for $0.25 you got a handful of the sticks with meat on it, and from what I was told, it was monkey meat. I do know on the barbecues they had little dogs and cats. It just wasn't a wonderful thing to look at, but I just didn't think about it and went ahead and give me a handful of meat, and they said, yeah, it's monkey. Okay, well, tasted okay. It wasn't bad. Was it just... Visiting, well, we got to go to Hong Kong, Singapore, Japan, Philippines, Vietnam, Hawaii. Disappointing. really disappointing. Not because I was out, but you expect a parade, you know? You see on TV these guys coming home from the service and there's a big old honking parade. And I went out and I looked out onto the pier when we tied up, and I promise you this is the truth, there were 12 people on the pier. 5,000 people on the ship, 12 people on the pier, and 6 of those was my family. Honest to God's truth. Honest to God. Nowadays, when people say, thank you for your service, that just, oh, thank you. You know, that kind of, because we didn't get it back then.
Yeah.
You know, I had set my own clock. It wasn't people telling you, you're doing this, you're doing that. Your whole life, day, you know, from the time you wake up till you go to bed, and they tell you when to wake up, they tell you when to go to bed, and everything in between. And then all of a sudden I'm like, now what?
Yeah.
You know, it was a little tough for a couple of months. I was working in machine shops, which I enjoyed working with machinery. And then I wanted to learn some more, so I took night classes at the college for industrial engineer. I was making blueprints, drawing them up, and we were lucky. We had a machine in the back of the room that actually made our drawing into a blueprint, and that was pretty cool. Yeah, I used the GI Bill for that. That was the first time I was in charge of people, and I had 19 of them, and that helped me become a buffer, is what I call it. If the head honcho was upset at something one of the guys did, I would catch it. I mean, get cussed out and called names and everything else, and I'd walk out and say, hey, he's pissed. You know, I wouldn't let him hear all the stuff I had to go through, so I would buffer it. I really loved the military because of your rank, where people, no matter where you go, you're shown the rank, respect because of your rank, and I really like that. I like that a lot. But civilian life, it's not like that, you know. I miss that part. I talked to a kid one time. He wanted to go in the service to Vietnam, and his mom and dad pleaded with me that he is not the type of person to be in the service, you know. And they were afraid that it would cost him his life. And they asked me could you say something to him about, you know. So what I told him was, you know, I'm real pleased that you want to go in, as I did too. But what we need are people here at home that will take care of the family. And I says, and now you would take care of if the enemy came over, you would protect your family, would you not? And yes. I said, you would show them a place to hide, and you would fight this person. Yes. Okay. Well, that's what I need. See, we're all on the same team. Even though I'm active military and you're not, I can go over here and fight and not daydream. I wonder if my family's okay. And boom, get a bullet in the head because I'm daydreaming, not paying attention. Where I don't have to do that because I know you're here, you will take care of the family, and so I can go over there and do my job and pay attention, you know, and I can come home. I didn't have a lot of rank, so, and that was okay. I was fine with that. My job was up here, and I was an E3 doing an E5's job, and I was introduced to 2 captains saying, this is the only man on the ship doing an E5's job, and he's just an E3. And I thought that was pretty cool. My dad always said, you know, whatever you're doing, give it your best. And I did. And it paid off in that aspect. That I was the only guy doing this job, and my rank was here. So I've often thought about people who have a company and they want to hire people, hire a vet, because they do what it takes to get the job done. They know how to follow orders. and he'll do whatever it takes to get the job done. So hire a vet.